good. Awesome.
Right.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Josh? What's up, Ricky?
Hey, how you doing? Hey, Andy.
How's it going?
Welcome everyone to the 14th episode of the A is A podcast, where we believe truth is the cornerstone to your success. And today we are going to be talking about just that with a very unique show this week. We're sort of taking a flyer to see what viewers think and whatnot. We're going to do somewhat of a book review with a book that sold millions of copies, was on the worldwide best-selling list for Andy, 6 months or so?
I don't know. It was up in there in the top 10 for a really long time. Might still be. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So Andy, what book is that?
So we're talking about Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. And I don't know when he released this, because he just released a new book.
Yeah.
So this book might have been 2 or 3 years ago, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Could have been longer. I don't know. What I'll say, though, to the audience listening is I had the idea of doing book reviews a while back. There's a lot of health and fitness books out there that I think are really fascinating that I'd like to kind of dive into deeply on future episodes. Kind of like we did on the sleep episode, where a lot of that information came from the Matt Walker Why We Sleep book. So this is going to be like one of our first, not really a book review, but kind of just discussing a book that is really popular and that kind of aligns with the podcast a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, so this one was Josh's pick. You recently read this when you were down in Florida, and you really liked it a lot. I told you, I thought that I had read this book, but as we were discussing before the podcast, when these authors write a new book, they go on a lot of podcasts, and they go on a whole book tour, and they do a lot of interviews, and they talk about their new book a lot on this big speaking tour to try to to sell the book. Mm-hmm. And I think that I actually listened to so many of those podcasts and interviews that I never actually read the whole book, because as I was going back preparing for this podcast, I was skimming through the book, and I'm like, I don't remember any of this stuff. So we'll see what we can get out of it. But the cool thing is it's 12 rules for life, and he's got 12 chapters, and each chapter is a new rule for life. And you can really just look at the chapter titles, and you kind of know what that chapter is about. And so what we're going to do is kind of just go through each chapter and just discuss what we think about it for a few minutes and see what comes of that. I think, Ricky, you haven't read the book either, but you read a couple summaries and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went through it real quick over the past week or so, and it's still a little fresh, and I took some notes, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so if we don't do the book justice, it might just be because we're not, it's not super fresh in our minds, or maybe we haven't read it as comprehensively as you would if you were like doing a full book report or something. But we should have some interesting conversation, I think.
Yeah, and you said, Andy, like the topic chapters, sort of explain a lot of it from an insight perspective,
Yeah.
For sure. And I'll say, Jordan Peterson has as many followers as he does haters. And, he gets hammered a lot because I think the viewers were see with the chapters here, he's asking people to take full responsibility for their own life. Mm-hmm. And, that can become a sensitive topic quite quickly for many reasons. I think we'll probably get into that as we go along. But, I would say if someone is listening that has a negative viewpoint on him and what he does, make sure you understand the book itself and, really what he truly stands for, whether, like Andy said, podcast or the book itself, and formulate your own thoughts on that. But I think it's a really good book for people looking to organize their life. So.
Yeah, when it comes to like Jordan Peterson's fans versus like his haters, so to speak, I think it kind of depends on what area he's talking about. Yep. Because I followed Jordan for a long time, and I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with him, because depending on what topic he's talking about, sometimes I think he's a genius and I'm in full agreement with him. And then on other topics, I'm somewhat in disagreement, or I think a little bit differently than he does. So I think where he really shines, Jordan Peterson is a clinical psychologist. He's been doing that for years, and he teaches psychology in universities. And when he's in that domain, which is his domain, he's phenomenal. When he's giving life advice and giving psychological advice and that sort of thing, I think he's brilliant. And that's the 12 rules for life is in that domain. These are, this is like how to organize your life, how to take responsibility, how to live a more meaningful life. And that's where he really shines. Yeah. So I think if he does have haters and fans, I doubt there's many people who are haters over the content in this book. Mm-hmm. Although there are some harsh truths in the book that can make you kind of, they can be a little shot to the gut where you're like, oh, that applies to me and I really need to fix that, you know? Yeah. But I wouldn't say I don't think that produces haters so much as just like, you know, you're having a mirror held up to you and you're realizing, like I have to fix that about myself, you know?
Yeah, I had a bunch of those.
Cool. Yeah, I think you want to just jump right into it? We'll go right to rule one.
Yeah.
So, okay, so rule one, the chapter, the title is Stand Up Straight with Your Shoulders Back. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if, Ricky, I know you had a few favorite chapters. I don't know if this was one of yours or not.
It was not.
I don't know if you have a few favorites, if this is one of yours or not, but does anyone want to kick us off with Stand Up Straight with Your Shoulders Back, what that means to you?
Yeah, the way I view this chapter is, and I think you related it to like the animal kingdom. I don't know if it was it crabs?
Lobsters.
Lobsters, yeah.
Jordan is famous for talking about lobsters.
Yeah. So like, I look at it like from a human standpoint that if someone presents themselves, you know, with poor posture, a weak handshake, no eye contact, you don't really have to go too far into looking to see how much self-esteem and confidence they have. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's a lot of studies showing that like the male handshake pressure has decreased by like over 30% in the last few years.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and females have gone up. So, guys,
I'm not surprised because I've seen that trend in society where females have become a lot more empowered over the last 20 years, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will say that Jordan's book here, even though it's written for everybody, it resonates most with young men.
Yes.
Mainly because there's been sort of a weakening of, or like kind of a decline in masculinity among men, and like a concern over toxic masculinity and stuff.
Yep.
And these might be valid concerns. There's probably things to fix, but sometimes the pendulum swings a little bit too far and maybe like men are cowering a little bit too much and trying not to show their strength or, you know, that side of themselves in fear of being portrayed as, you know, toxic in that, you know, toxic masculinity sort of way.
Yeah. For sure. I think that, you know, society has somewhat told us that it's okay as males now, I think, to not stand up straight and be strong, courageous, and whatnot. And that chapter hit home to me because in the animal kingdom, right, if you have a weak species just moping around, right, they generally just get wiped out. You don't generally see that as much. Whether it's an outcast in a herd, something injured or whatnot, they don't get too far as establishing a hierarchy and dominance. And, you know, I don't think that people need to be shooting for the top position, that, you know, all the time by any means, or the highest ego or anything like that, but just the basic, you could call it military, but like, you know, proper posture, stand up straight, firm handshake, eye contact, all the time. It goes a long ways. And this chapter resonated with me partially because like when I pick up on this a lot, but when you check out at a grocery store or a store, how many people even make eye contact with you at the checkout anymore?
Right.
And how many people are just moped over like slugs?
Right.
Like, and like, what in the world is that?
Well, I think it's a lot to do with not working out and also,
Yeah.
you know, being in front of a computer all day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that I had really bad posture whenever I was, you know, my science nerd. Not that I'm not a science nerd now, but you know, I was always in front of a desk where I was reading from a book, or I was, you know, always slouched and hunched over, and my shoulders were rounded forward and all that. And I had to practice. I mean, my father always told me, he's like, stand up tall, you know, hold your head up high, and keep your shoulders back.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how important it was until, you know, I got older and I realized, you know what, I should be presenting myself with more confidence. You don't have to be masculine. You don't have to be pushy. You don't have to be, you know, an aggressive person, but just present yourself as a confident individual.
Yep. And I think that when people implement that, they will see better things happen to them in life.
Yeah,
because you're not being taken advantage of. The person isn't one-upping you in a conversation because they think they are more dominant, right? All of those things can open up areas, I think, quite quickly in relationships, business conversations, anywhere.
Yep.
When you have this in order.
I think Jordan's main point is that, like you said, Josh, how when you start standing up straight with your shoulders back and you have a more confident air to you and stronger, self-image, we'll say, that you portray and project. It does make your life better down the road because there's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy there. Kind of the lesson of the chapter is almost fake it till you'll make it.
Totally.
In a way, because a lot of people do, like you said with the grocery store example, they're slumped over, they're kind of in a defeated sort of posture and mentality a lot of the time. And there ends up being a vicious cycle where we're in that state. You don't look for opportunities, you become pessimistic, and it's a situation where winners and people who are confident and strong, winners keep winning and losers keep losing. You know, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. There's like kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy to how you carry yourself. So if you are stuck in that situation where you do feel a little defeated, Jordan's recommendation would be stand up straight with your shoulders back, fake it till you make it, at least appear confident, appear strong, and like carry yourself that way and engage with the world, you know, in the strongest way that you can, like forthright and head on. And the more that you display yourself as confident and competent, the more you'll slowly start to make that real. You know, it starts with your mentality and how you carry yourself, and that can change how your mind works, and you'll eventually start to embody those virtues.
That is so well said, Andy. Like, and I think of it as like when you're sitting in a meeting, right? With like maybe 5 or 6 other people there, maybe 10 or 20. And maybe technically you would be looked at as the low man on the totem pole, right? Maybe. Let's say you're doing a presentation in front of 20 school superintendents, right? And you could go in there and say, it's just little old me, or you could go in there and pretend that you are them or a notch above, and what you have is great and they need it, and you're going to own the room and you deserve to be there. And just, you're the same person either way, but that mindset shift, I think you radiate a different energy. And I see it all the time when people public speak, or I'm very observant with that. And you are so right, Andy. It sets the stage for something farther down the road, whether it's that hour, that minute, or 6 months from then.
Yeah, it's a fine line, because we'll talk later about the importance of honesty and truth. You don't want to portray yourself falsely. You don't want to pretend to be an expert in an area that you're not, or something like that. But you do want to conduct yourself with as much confidence as you can, and just be confident in knowing that you're doing the best that you can, and that will lead to long-term change over time. Yeah.
All right.
We'll hit the second rule, maybe.
Yeah, we're at 12 rules. If we spend 10 minutes on each, it'll be a 2-hour podcast. But we got to spend like 5 minutes on each.
I think that some of them are a little bit quicker.
Speed round.
Okay.
Yeah. This one is treat yourself like someone that you're responsible for helping.
Yep.
Yep. you know, Jordan gave the example that like people take care of pets better than they take care of themselves. You know, you're responsible for your dog, and the second that they're sick, you're taking them to the vet, you're getting them their medications, you're making sure they take them at all the right times, you know,
Yep.
you're doing all the right things for them. But people, when their doctors prescribe them medications or something, they half listen, they, you know, they don't do what they're supposed to do. They don't even take them. You know, a lot of times people just don't take care of themselves the way that they would take care of, let's say, their children or their pets or someone that they're responsible for. And he argues that you should be taking care of yourself. You are responsible for yourself.
Yeah, that leads to people not spending as much time on themselves as they should so they can effectively help. Because I would argue that that same person that they're helping more than themselves, they're truly not helping them at the level they could be if they were helping themselves more. Right? So it's sort of like the sick is leading the sick. And, you know, I think that's sort of a twist, you know, an inverted way of viewing that. But, you know, between our animals and relatives and everyone else that we put first ahead of ourselves, there's a percentage of that time that could be spent on ourselves. Therefore, when we are able to reach out to help and assist, it's even better than what it was. So if that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, Jordan argues that maybe one of the reasons that people don't take care of themselves as well as they should is because to some extent they don't like themselves or respect themselves. And this is just another one of his injunctions that you really should conduct yourself in a way. You should live virtuously. You should speak the truth. You should act responsibly. You should work for the common good. The more that you do those sort of things that you can be proud of yourself for, then the more you will respect yourself, like yourself, and be more likely to take care of yourself. So it kind of ties into his whole, he's trying to tell people to really take responsibility for themselves and live a moral and virtuous life if possible. When you do that, you're going to like yourself more, and that's going to help you take care of yourself more, because now you actually, well, you like yourself and you want to take care of yourself.
Yes. Good. Nice.
Okay. Rule number 3, make friends with people who want the best for you. I know you're good at this, Josh. I love the quote that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? You talk about that a lot.
Yeah. That topic there, make friends with people who want the best for you, that is a true reality check for people and what they want out of their life and in their life. And because I do feel that the crab, what is that, the analogy where the crabs keep pulling each other down into the bottom of the bucket when one tries to escape?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how a lot of relationships are with friends and family and whatnot. And, you know,
we do it all the time in the gym, right? Where someone is trying to change their diet and they want to become healthier, but then all of their friends are telling them, no, come out, have some pizza, have some beer, like come down to our level.
Or when you pitch an idea or try to improve in any level, the response from, or the initial response from friends, family, and who you spend your time with, what does that response look like? Is it negative? Is it filled with limiting beliefs? Or
are they cheering you on and encouraging you?
Exactly. Like that, and that I've really spent a lot of time here, and I'm always like going through, you know, just who I think is benefiting the greater good of the relationship and all that. And it is really amazing. You know, thankfully at our gym and, you know, what we've created here, it's quite amazing. But I think there's a lot of people that could remake that circle. You know, Ricky, what do you think about that?
Well, this was actually one of my favorite ones whenever I read the title. And so I'd like to spend a little bit more time on this one if we could, because for me personally, I had to make this change in my life. I was always that kid that was going out partying, or I was that kid that was going out and drinking and, you know, doing the wrong things or eating the wrong things. And it was always because of the influence of my friends. you know, I've always wanted to be healthy. I've always wanted to be in shape, and I went to the gym and I tried, but I was always brought down by my friends who were like, no, you know, come drink with us, or oh, come do this.
Mhm.
So this one was a big one where I had to lose a lot of my friends, and I found out who my true friends were, because some people were like, oh, you don't want to drink anymore? I don't want to associate with you.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, why is that the deciding factor? I'm like, I'm still the same person, and I'll still go out and have a good time. I just won't drink.
You're trying to make yourself better. A true friend should be happy for you doing that and be
Yeah.
like, dude, good on you. Go for it.
Yeah.
Good luck with this.
Right. And, you know, hopefully I was hoping to influence them to be a little bit better too, you know, not pushing them, but maybe that they would see my results and say, oh, wow, he actually is getting healthier and better. Maybe we should cut back or something like that. But no, most of them just dumped me, and they kept doing what they're doing, and they're where they are now, and I'm here.
And this is, we keep saying, Josh and Ricky, this is like one of the biggest selling points, or the biggest benefits of our gym co-movement is we're trying to build a community of people who are positive. They're trying to grow. They're trying to improve themselves, be better people. I mean, we've got a community full of people where if I'm in our gym at any time, I'm surrounded by people that I can learn from and who are better than me, so to speak, in a lot of ways.
And they genuinely care about you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We celebrate one another's success all the time in that gym.
Yeah.
Everybody.
But even if it's not a client working with you, Andy, they're still like genuine, nice. They care about you. You can have a good conversation. Like it's a pretty great synergy, you know?
And they're motivating you. Like whenever you have those small wins, you know, people congratulate you, you know, things like that. Even you post like monthly, you know, people of the month, right? Like client of the month.
Yep.
And they, you know, that not only, you know, boosts them up, but people see their results and they're very supportive of those people.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've heard it time and time again. That's one of the top reasons people join, is just for a place to go to feel, you know, motivated, inspired, welcomed, warm, you know.
Be part of the community that's all moving up and moving up together.
Yeah.
One another to do so.
I ask in their consultations, who is your support person in your life that's going to help you achieve your goals? 50% say no one.
Wow.
Because their husband or wife isn't on board, and, you know, their kids are too young to probably support. Their coworkers are, you know, doing their thing, and their friends from high school, if they're around, are in a different world. Ricky, it's the same story you said. I hear it all the time. And one of the biggest tipping points in my life to date, I've had a few, but one was in 2005. I emailed James Fitzgerald, my CrossFit coach. I was like depressed. I was working at an insurance company. I was really sort of at the bottom of my social and not physical life, but social and mental, right? And he responded. He said, who are you putting the most energy into in your life? And I named off, you know, friends and my family. And then he responded with something I'll never forget. He said, who out of those are helping you support and achieve your goals? Like, who are genuinely reciprocating on the energy that you're giving them? Are they giving it back to you? And for me, it was almost no one, other than the immediate close, my mom, dad, you know, sister. You know, there was some people I was training for free, you know, clients, but I was really surrounded with people I was trying to change over and over and over. And then it was like, oh, you know, Josh is eating vegetables again, or, oh, Josh needs to work out again, or Josh is going to bed early. And after a while, you're like, man, this is beating the piss out of me. Fuck them, you know? And so I reached out to him, and he said, you need to choose today who it is that is benefiting and wanting to benefit from the relationship that you're in with them and your value system, and put all of your energy into them, just them, and then slowly delete and start weaning off of the other crowd. And I did that. And then, you know, here we are, like 11 years into, you know, a community that we've all built together. like values, like belief systems. And so we started from scratch, and this is what we've redone. So
I'm going to throw on one more little piece at the end of this, kind of an interesting stumbling block maybe for some people here, is that it does take a degree of courage and humility to surround yourself with people who are like quote unquote better than you. You know, it's very easy and attractive sometimes to associate with, again, in air quotes, lesser people, because it makes you look good in comparison. You're at the top of the group, but that's just, you know, that's just stroking your ego. It doesn't help you improve as a person. But going into surrounding yourself with a group of friends who are all at a higher level than you in whatever that group does, that can be a bit, you know, that smashes the ego a little bit. Like now you're on like the lower level, and you have to kind of be humble and be ready to learn from these people above you. And that is difficult for some people to, you know, you see it with people trying to join a gym. I think yesterday, Josh, there might've been someone saying that I think it's a client who's considering coming to our gym, but who was saying that they wanted to get in shape first before they come to the gym. You know, and people have this idea that they already want to be at the level of the people that they are going to be surrounding themselves with. And that, you know, that's a dangerous trap to fall into, because then you're never going to, you know, go up and associate with those people that are doing things better than you are, that you want to learn from.
Yeah, that's a goal that'll never be achieved, you know. So if it's like, I want to lose 5 more pounds and be able to do a push-up before I join co-movement, well, you know, I don't know why, you know, and you're still behind a ton of people here, and you may be ahead of some people, you know, like it's somewhat irrelevant, you know. What you're saying is absolutely true. They need the courage to step into the arena with people that are better than them in certain areas, but yet are supportive and want them to succeed. You know, it is so common to express good news to what you think are your friends, and then there's greed, envy, jealousy, you know, limiting beliefs, all of this stuff that just comes out subconsciously. And that just gives you a very clear insight into what they want best for you, you know.
I can't remember who said this. I don't know if it was like, I don't think it was Elon Musk, but it was someone that I follow who's a very successful person, but who said that they always want to be the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Always something to learn, you know?
Yeah. Another one I've heard is eagles fly alone. So if you're doing your thing at a pretty high level, the number of people around you will be far and few between. Only because you're sort of in a different category of goals and who can truly support you and whatnot, you know. Sometimes the most social people, what we could call like the football captain, you know, like has the biggest social circle, is in many cases has the most hollow, true relationships, because they're the politician. They're friends with everybody. We know people like this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But you know, when shit
some of those people are not serving them in terms of helping them grow and better their life.
I would rather 5 great friends than 100 shitty ones.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Rule 5.
Yeah.
Rule 5 is
4.
Oh, 4. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Ooh, okay. Well, okay. Rule 4: compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. So that's kind of a cumbersome title. My reformulation of that would simply be compare yourself to yourself, or compare yourself to who you were yesterday. You know, worry about improving you and being the best version of yourself, not so much comparing yourself to others. Kind of goes without, I mean, that doesn't require too much explanation, but it's a great rule.
Yeah. I mean, this was one of the biggest things for me. I think I even told this to Josh before I read this book, that this was always my mantra, was trying to be the best version of myself. And one of the main reasons I got off of social media and a lot of other things is because I didn't want to compare myself to a lot of other people. I wanted to just...
I was just going to say that, Ricky, the social media piece. I remember us talking about that.
Yeah, because I just wanted to compare myself to who I was yesterday and to be better than that person.
Mhm.
And one of the other things that I actually did read this chapter, believe it or not. And so they said winning, at everything might mean that you aren't actually trying anything new
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
difficult. And I thought that was pretty big because, I always valued, winning as meaning that I was doing the best,
Mhm.
right? Winning was satisfying.
Mhm.
But, I reading that really kind of checked with me, and it kind of took me back, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I should try new things or more difficult things and, experiment a little bit because that's how you grow,
Yeah,
you
because I
know?
would say that winning just means that you're doing in this one particular area better than the people around you.
Hmm.
Maybe you lifted more than your 5 workout partners that day, if you want to call that winning. But maybe a better way to think about winning is, did you lift more, or whatever your goal is? Like, let's say it's weightlifting. Did you lift more this month than you did last month? Or did you improve in whatever way? Like, whatever you think it is that you're winning at,
Hmm.
don't compare yourself to the people around you. Don't say, am I doing better than everyone else in the gym or whatever area of life?
Hmm.
But am I doing better than I was yesterday or last week or the year before or whatever? That's
And
what real winning is. And that's kind of the point of the chapter.
yeah, and I want to say one more thing is that, whenever I was going for my PhD in chemistry, I noticed a lot of people kind of stay in this one track. They're like, I'm good at this science, let's say organic chemistry. And they're like, the only thing I'm going to do for the rest of my life is organic chemistry.
Comfort zone. That's where
Yeah. And I was like, that sounds boring. I was like, why don't you try, this, or why don't you try that? Why don't you try any other physical chemistry, biochemistry? There's so many different types out there that I could probably name.
yeah. And
And it,
oh, sorry, go on, go on.
but it was like, that was one thing where I always wanted to try new things or talk to different people that were experts in their field to learn more from them to actually become better overall.
Yep.
I think sometimes people just get in that comfort zone. They're like, I'm really good at this and I'm just going to keep doing this. And it's like, that's great. They're still successful. I know plenty of people. I know people that actually helped with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, but that's all they've done their entire life. So I don't know.
I think this is a great topic that Jordan writes about because I think we're sort of trying to or are living vicariously through others instead of doing true check-ins with yourself. And
Hmm.
that takes a lot of work.
Mhm.
A lot of checking your ego, a lot of changing your maybe values, friends, I don't know. But if you're comparing to other people's lives and the vacations and the homes and the cars and the income, and you're not spending any time checking yourself out and where you are and how you're growing and what metrics are you even measuring that by, if at
Hmm.
all, um, you're just floating in space and you're just in this you know artificial intelligence social media world, where we're just connected into other people's lives but not really connected into our own. And
Hmm.
I think that's very, very fascinating because that's easy to do. I was talking to Bob yesterday or Wednesday in the gym talking about consumerism and how it is so easy now to, anytime we hit a dip in our attitude, depression, emotions, we can just simply buy something. And it doesn't need to be much. It could be a $20 item or, a $100 item. Or then when we're really in a slump, we go buy a car, but we really can just keep injecting ourselves over and over versus stepping back and asking ourselves, well, why do we feel this way now and in this space or over the last week or month? And where am I versus where do I want to be? It's all this self-reflection. You can't do that through living through other people, comparing to other people, numbing it through consumerism. You can never and assess yourself accurately that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. Jordan's book is really all about how to ultimately be happy, live a happy life. And one of his main themes through this whole thing is that having a meaningful life, meaning is what brings happiness, or it's one of the major factors. And that's why he wants you to compare yourself to who you were yesterday and try to be better today or tomorrow, because he says it's in that striving to improve yourself and in that striving to be better that we find meaning, that ultimately gives us happiness. The happiness isn't in the achievement. It's not necessarily getting whatever it is you're going for. You don't even necessarily have to achieve the thing that you're striving for, but it's in that uphill battle of striving. It's the whole journey is its own reward, not the destination.
Yeah, the hero's journey, right?
Yeah. And I think that's something he was trying to, that was the lesson he was trying to impart with this chapter, is strive to make yourself better than you were yesterday. Don't worry about other people. And as long as you're striving to be better, you're going to find meaning in that. And that's going to provide you with a lot more happiness than, say, these injections of consumerism like you were talking about, Josh.
And I think they need to define what better is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You gotta be clear on that stuff.
Yeah. Because there's 1,000 routes you could go there, because you could just sort of take the easy route out and just say, I'm happier today. Or you could take these generalized approaches versus something somewhat measurable to truly see, where you are improving in life or growing, where you are along that hero's journey. I think that would be pretty interesting for a lot of people. So.
Sure. Okay. Rule 5. Don't let your children do anything that makes you dislike them.
I like that one.
So what do you get from that then, Josh?
Okay. So kids are hard and, life is busy and whatnot. And so it's easy, let's say, this is just the first thing that comes to mind. Just feed them anything in the house just to get them full and done with dinner and quick and easy. But on the flip side, you don't truly believe in that. And so by default, your kid's now eating, a muffin for dinner, let's say, because the way that the evening was playing out and whatnot. But that choice isn't making you happy because they're eating a muffin. And, through stress and just being so busy, it's easy. The easier route in many cases, long-term, will cause you to dislike your kids with their choices. Because if they eat that muffin for 6, 7, 8 years in a row, 2, 3 nights a week, and now they're a teenager making those choices, they will develop into those habits over time that will cause you to dislike them.
Yep.
And that takes a lot of effort, because a lot of the stuff we want them to do to make us like them takes time and energy.
Yeah. With a kid living at home, they're not out in the real world yet. So you're trying to teach them and prepare them for the real world by the way that you parent them. You have rules in your house, just like there are rules in society. You have responsibilities that you want them to attend to, wash the dishes or make their bed or whatever, just like there are responsibilities in society. There are ways that you want them to treat guests and other family members, just like when they get out in society, there's ways that they're expected to act that are appropriate or inappropriate. Jordan's big thing that he was trying to hammer at on this chapter was, he argues that parents have a duty or like an obligation to act as proxies for the real world. The role of a parent is to make the child someone that will function well in society when they're older. And if you're letting them get away with all these bad behaviors and just sit in front of a computer all day and play video games and just eat junk food and stay up late and so on and so forth, you're turning them into someone that down the road isn't going to function well in society, and that society is going to look at as kind of a lesser person and dislike, so to speak. So you don't want to let your children do things that make you dislike them in the house. When they grow up and they go into society, they're going to be disliked by society in that same way. You know, it's kind of training kids growing up in the house.
Yeah,
So this chapter was like kind of a lesson for parents, or a rule for parents.
yeah, that was well put, Andy. I remember now reading the comparison with, it's almost like in-house training for, like you said, for society.
Yeah.
My example, I didn't even touch on that, but that's really good. Yeah.
Well, sometimes children can figure out that their parents weren't the best either, and maybe didn't train them the right way, and can make those changes themselves.
Yep.
I'm not going to point any fingers or anything, but there's at least one person here that didn't follow after his parents' examples. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Okay. So rule 6 then, set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. That's a really good one. I like that a lot. And this goes along with his famous quote of "make your bed." I think that came from Jordan, right?
No.
Or is it clean your room?
No, yeah, maybe that, but make your bed. I actually found that yesterday on YouTube because I knew we were going to be talking.
Okay.
And it was by a Navy admiral. And it was at a commencement speech.
Okay. So
yeah.
clean your room was Jordan. I can't remember which quote it was, but yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
And the idea there is just that you can't, you know, people want to, when they eventually do go out into society, they're going to have to assume positions of responsibility. They're going to be managers in companies, or run corporations, or maybe be a mayor of a town, or, you know, city, or take some sort of political office or something. But, you know, adults eventually graduate into higher levels of responsibility and management. And, you know, you can't organize a structure underneath you until you've kind of organized your own situation. So it's an admonishment to get your own life in order, your own surroundings in order, your own schedule in order, before you start trying to go out into the world and dictate how the world should be.
Yeah. Imagine in today's world if everyone did that.
Yeah.
Like with, you know, everyone giving advice, and they're all, you know, professionals in every area, and they're judging.
Yeah.
Is your bed even made? Is your house picked up? Like, you know, like, because I'll tell you what, since I read that chapter, I've been putting a lot of effort into that, actually just specifically the house. And it's a ton of work and time to make sure it's all squared away. I don't mean like neat freak or anything, but I mean like floors, countertops, like the dishes, like all of that. Is it actually in order? And you know, the other thing it inspired me to do is I have a 12x16 shed that was just filled with it was just unorganized. And after I read the shed, I emptied the whole shed onto the lawn, and it was driving me nuts. And I got rid of probably a third of the stuff. I organized every tool down to my tool bits and wrenches. I organized everything. And I feel a shit ton better.
Yeah, you learn a lot of little lessons like that when you're just taking care of your own surroundings and property and your own life, that apply then to the larger world down the road. This rule kind of reminded me of the Gandhi quote, you know, be the change you wish to see in the world. And we say that a lot, Josh, where like, you know, we all see all these big problems in the world, politically and societally and whatever, and things are kind of a mess sometimes, it seems. And you're always wondering, like, what's the big thing that needs to change? Like, what do our leaders need to do or whatever to fix the world? But we've always said, like, if every individual person just decided to be a good person, be responsible, have their own stuff in order, then all of a sudden, magically, the whole world would be in order, clean, a nice place to live, happy, optimistic. You know, it all starts with just what all the individuals are doing, because society is really just a collection of a ton of individuals. If all those individuals have their own stuff in order, society is in order.
Yeah, and if there is one major theme that I try to stand for and promote, it's that.
Yeah.
Like, and it's so simple.
So simple, but so easy to overlook. People want to blame, you know, the circumstances on something else. Instead, just focus on yourself and realize that that's the best thing that you can do for the world at large.
Yeah, and I was talking with a client the other day in the gym where if more people did just that, at the end of the day, guaranteed they'd have less energy to care about what other people are doing.
Yes.
Truly.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Do you think the Amish guy,
if you're like spending all your time just fixing up your own shit?
yeah, like, do you think the Amish guy that just plowed the field for 12 hours gives a shit what the guy at the end of the road's doing with his lawn?
Right.
He just doesn't care. And I get this a lot with my Mennonite friends. Like, I've got lots of them and I'm close with them. They don't care at all what's on the news or the drama of anything. They don't even know it because they're consumed with chores and life and what's the weather doing. And, you know, like, they just have projects going. They have family get-togethers. Like, they just don't have they literally don't have the energy or the time.
Right. Yeah. Because complaining is a waste of time. And if you're putting energy into the things that matter, you don't have an energy left for the stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah. If you were, you know, setting your house in perfect order, cooking, working out, calling good friends, getting together, having a list of cool projects you want to start, you know, maybe pursuing mastery on or getting better at, or like, and you just had all these things going in your life for you or, you know, your friends or your family. You don't have time to be an armchair quarterback or, like, you know, to blame all of your problems on something else. You truly don't. You don't. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll hit rule 7 now. This one is pursue what is meaningful. And we already kind of talked about that a little bit, and not what is expedient. Yeah, I mean, the couple little notes that I just took down here is that to have I think this is one of Jordan's quotes in the book, is that to have meaning in your life is better than to have what you want. And we already, like I said, kind of talked on that a little bit, but yeah, this chapter is all about pursuing meaning. Anything you guys want to say about that? I didn't have a lot of notes on this one.
Yeah. So I actually did like this one, and I did write down a little bit. From that quote that you did just mention, it also says, I think, like, because you may neither know what you want nor what you truly need.
Right. Yep.
So, and I mean,
and your wants change all the time.
Right. So yeah, what you want can change, but what you need is essentially stays the same. You know, you need food, you need water, you need a roof over your head.
Yep.
I mean, what else do you really need?
Yep.
But yeah, and then, like, other things that were in there was, you know, if the world you're seeing is not the one that you want, then it's time to examine your values. And I think you guys touched on this in even the last chapter, but I thought that was pretty powerful.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. Yeah, your values are going to be, you got to live in accordance with your values to have a meaningful life. And this is, you know, pursue what is meaningful as this topic. Something interesting that I heard him say about this is that successful people delay gratification and they bargain with the future. I think that's Jordan's quote. But basically he's saying that success, or like doing well in life requires sacrifice. So this kind of almost goes back to the consumerism thing that Josh was talking about, where people just want to, like, buy the next thing or have the next dopamine hit to get a little instant jolt of fake happiness. But real happiness is going to come from pursuing what's meaningful. And the pursuit of meaning requires sacrifice. It means giving up something right now, maybe having to do work, buckle down, not buy that new toy or whatever, for a greater good down the line. And operating with that mentality gives your life a lot more meaning than if you're just pursuing, like, the next hit of pleasure from some cheap source.
Yeah, I had that written down. And I don't know, Josh, did you want to say something? Yeah. Did you want to sacrifice in the present for the benefit of tomorrow?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I view this as in, like, when you're choosing your purpose, or something that's meaningful. In many cases, I think your purpose should outlive you.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean by that is, and I got that essentially from not what is expedient, right? So we could take the example of, improving soil health, through regenerative agriculture, right? Soil health. That's not going to be fixed in my lifetime. So that purpose and that goal that's maybe meaningful will continue to move on past me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that you can really set the stage for something beautiful in life if what you're pursuing will be a constant pursuit forever.
Mm-hmm.
And you can whittle it down as far as, Andy, let's say climbing, right? Like you're going to be having climbing goals at some level, possibly forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll never run out of climbs.
Right.
You'll run out of routes. You'll never run out of locations. Like that is something that is not expedient at all.
No endpoint.
No endpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start viewing the world, and hopefully what is meaningful to you is beneficial to the world. Let's just put that outside of the world, because please, we need more people like that. So let's just say that's a gimme. And so now that that's a gimme, it gets exciting to know that you're not in a hurry and there's not a lot of pressure if you're making small improvement, again, not comparing yourself to other people, but to yourself, to something that is forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be anything, right?
Yeah. Like essentially fix what you can fix. As long as you can always strive for something that's, better than yourself and something that won't be achieved in your lifetime, but just do your best to fix what you can fix.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important, because a lot of times, sometimes people even focus on things that they have zero control over.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot, especially people that watch the news. They like to worry about things that they have zero control over, and they like to talk about it and complain about it. And it's like, why are you wasting so much energy on these things you can't control and you don't have any power to do anything towards, when you could be focusing all that same energy on something, like that you can do? Like you're saying, maybe it's the soil thing, or maybe it's, I don't know, developing a new engine that, benefits the entire world. Like you have no idea what, everyone's capable of something different.
Yeah, there's a perfect example of that, Ricky. Is a few days ago, I listened to a podcast about the future of farming with Vandana Shiva. And she had said that everyone listening to this should just do one thing per day to support regenerative agriculture. That's it, just one thing. Like maybe you compost your food, or, you buy from a local farmer, or I don't know what it is, use less trash, but something, just one thing per day and that's, again, you doing it, something you can do, and it's a meaningful purpose that will never be an endpoint.
Right. And maybe you're not going to be the one to change the world there, but you are pursuing a goal that would make the world a better place in the long run. And maybe it won't happen for another 100 years or 200 years, but you're living towards that ideal. And that's meaningful.
And it goes back to the one we just did, where everyone did just that little.
How fast would things change?
Everything.
Yeah.
Let's take littering, for example, right? So if you just worried about yourself not throwing trash out the window and didn't do that, there wouldn't be any litter.
Yeah. Everyone just has to do that. It's that easy.
That easy. Yeah. Cool.
All right. Rule 8 is, I love this one, although it doesn't really require too much explanation, but tell the truth, or at least don't lie, is the title of the chapter. I'll start with a quote. This one's from the book. It's like 3 sentences, but it's, if your life is not what it could be, try telling the truth. If you cling desperately to an ideology or wallow in nihilism, try telling the truth. If you feel weak and rejected and desperate and confused, try telling the truth. In paradise, everyone speaks the truth. That's what makes it paradise. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. And that kind of sums up his attitude about this chapter and what he's trying to get at. This ties into one of my favorite books written by Sam Harris. He wrote a book called Lying, it's a relatively short book, maybe 150 pages or so, but it's an entire book dedicated to just this topic on how Sam considers lying to be like the foundation of all evil. It's basically like where pretty much everything bad in the world kind of starts from. Every bad act is in some way an act of dishonesty. So he argues that you should always try to tell the truth and be truthful and honest in all of your dealings with yourself and others.
Yeah, I think this could be my favorite chapter.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so like this is harder than it seems.
Very, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll get that out there. And in today, the society that we live in, I think it's very easy to just be always talking in like gray. Like really, you're not super truthful, but you're not lying, and we're just not hurting anyone's feelings or being honest.
Is that why you think people speak in grays? Do you think that they have a truth on their mind? So I wasn't sure what you meant. If you thought that people were just confused and they didn't know what the truth was, so they just speak in like vague terms, or if they have an idea of what the truth is, but they're worried about hurting feelings and stuff, and so they speak in vagueness.
Yeah, I think of truth is not, it doesn't have to be fact or not, right? It could just be opinion, but
just
I don't.
Honesty.
Yes.
Yeah. Your honest mind.
We're avoiding conflict at all costs.
Yep.
And
That's what I thought you were going. I agree.
Yeah, and that's at a sacrifice of our values, our belief systems, and this is tough, but like, if you can be in relationships, friends, family, spouse, that you can be truthful with all the time, but not be judged negatively, that's a really great place to be.
That goes back to like the surrounding yourself with the right people.
Totally.
Surround yourself with people, you have the right people. If you can be honest with them, you're not afraid to be honest.
Totally.
You have no fear just letting people know exactly who you are.
Yep.
The people that you're willing to do that around are like your best friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And when you look at like our circle, right? That is that. Like we're not all similar. We have similar, some values and this and that, but we definitely have differences. But man, you can just talk and be truthful, and you don't got to worry about hurting Andy's feelings. Like it's just it. And, and I think that is what creates, definitely a better world, but it also creates tighter bonds with people.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say too. You cannot connect with people if you're not being yourself. Totally. If you're being dishonest, then they are not getting the real you, so there's not a real connection.
Yeah. Ricky, what do you think about that?
This is the chapter I kind of skipped over. I thought it,
okay,
because I thought the title was pretty straightforward.
It is.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, don't lie. All right, that's good.
Well,
I can go slightly deeper into this one for a second, because this is one that I struggled with a lot. Not that I was like a habitual liar or anything in the conventional sense, but I think a problem in the modern world is that everyone feels like they're under pressure to project a certain image or maintain a certain image these days, especially on like social media and stuff. People always want to post the most beautiful pictures, or they're always basically trying to like show you their resume and how great their life is and whatever. And even in just casual conversations with people, everyone's always like trying to seem happier than they are, or whatever it is. Everyone has this image that they want other people to have of them. And so they're always trying to get people to buy into that image. They're always trying to project that image. And that is a subtle form of lying, because you're not really being yourself. And I know that me personally, I struggled for a long time, like especially like through my 20s and stuff, with an intense fear of what other people thought of me. And I think that's where telling the truth becomes such a stumbling block for people. Tell the truth sounds like a very, be honest. That sounds like a very easy rule. But if you're really worried what other people think about you, and you are always trying to like, you know, you want people to think that you're smart. You want people to think that you're witty. You want people to think you're funny. You want people to think like all these things about you, and you're always trying to project that image. Then, like I said, it's a low level form of lying. Being, I can say this, I speak from experience here. Being fake is my least favorite thing in the world. Being fake is like living in hell. It really is, because it's difficult. You're always trying to like maintain this image.
And you're always worried about being found out.
Constantly. That's always in the back of your mind. It's painful. And like Josh said, it prevents real connection with others. You might even trick people and make people think that you're like this super smart, super athletic, super healthy, super, you know, funny, like whatever, like this whole image you're trying to project. Or you might have this whole online profile that shows all your vacations and all your like beautiful outfits and happy family and whatever. You might trick people into thinking that that's the case, but you're not going to connect with people. And like Ricky said, you're always going to be worried about being found out. So you're so I think people these days are constantly trying to maintain this image, and that creates a horrendous level of stress. And if you can just find people like we were talking about before, who you feel free to just be yourself around, then you can drop all that. And it's a huge weight off your shoulders, you know, and then you can actually finally live like a real life where you're connecting to people, and you just feel free to express yourself and be yourself. And now you're living in heaven, so to speak, as opposed to hell.
Like two things of that. Like, I think when you have the right peer group or people that you spend time with, telling the truth it comes much more natural because you don't feel like you need to craft something differently.
Right.
You just don't feel like you need to. So that's one thing. So if you find yourself really jammed up here with this one, who are you around? So if you're around a bunch of people that eat like shit and don't, you know, aren't active or whatever, and you're like, you know, superhero workout man, it's probably going to be pretty hard to be telling the truth. Like when they're pounding beers and nachos, like, I don't know, you know, you're just going to be in an awkward position. Versus people with similar, you know, not identical, but similar belief systems. That'll be easier to tell the truth for sure. The second thing is, and this was for me about 5 or 6 years ago, it finally cracked, was just not caring about what other people think.
That's the biggest, I think that's the biggest tip for how to get to a point where you can live honestly.
But I don't say that like just cliche. I truly mean that. And Andy, you know I mean that.
It's actually, it's something that people say a lot, so it sounds simple and it sounds almost superficial. Like you said, it's become cliche, but that's actually a really deep thought a really deep practice when you actually start diving into it.
Yeah, and so I want to be clear, because there are probably people that will hear that and say, oh, you just go out and be an asshole. No, you don't. Like, you're still a good human being, and you help and you contribute and you have purpose, right? Because we already went over all of this stuff today. But like, you know, you're not concerned with, I don't know, I'm not really concerned about anything. Like, my goal isn't to hurt anyone's feelings or this or that. But at the same time, if I do a presentation or I post something or something, you know, doesn't go as planned, I am truly detached with people judging me. I don't give a shit. And there was a quote by, was it Theodore Roosevelt, the man in the arena? You know that? Everyone's heard that?
Yeah, I have heard that. It might be Roosevelt. I don't know.
Yeah,
I know the quote. It's a good one.
Yeah, the man in the arena, like, that's covered in blood, sweat, and dust and tears, and valiantly striving and putting effort in, right? He's the one that deserves the credit, you know? And I tell myself that all the time. If your purpose and you're moving forward in the right direction and putting yourself out there and taking risk and jumping into the fire, you really can't be connected with what, you know, Susie thinks of you, like, at all. And even to go farther, maybe even close friends and family. right? This is saying you're not hurting them or making their life negative or making yourself a liability in their life. I'm saying we're past that. But if you come out with an idea like I did in 2010 to say, I'm going to open up a gym in my backyard, and everyone said that was a bad idea, didn't matter. I did it anyways. And, you know, I would have owned it either way. It was obviously a success, but if it wasn't a success, I would own that too. But I gave myself permission to say, look, leave a really good job, you know, take this risk, start this blog, start charging this much that everyone thought was too expensive, right? I just said, you know what, I would rather go this route and see what happens. But if I will say that if I didn't prescribe to exactly that, I would be living someone else's life.
You're such a great example of a lot of these rules, Josh, and definitely this one. I wanted to point out how a couple of these rules start tying into each other, where like, you know, we've talked about the importance of living a meaningful life and being a good person and being responsible and so on. The more that you exemplify those virtues, the more, the easier it becomes to not be fake and just to be who you are. The more proud of yourself that you are deep down, because you know that you're trying your best and doing good things, then the more willing you are to let people see who the real you, because you're proud of the real you. You're doing good things. You know, you're it's the people who are maybe who are trying to manipulate others, or who are not really doing the best things in the world, and they know that. Those are the people that are not going to want to tell the truth and be honest about who they are, because they're not proud of who they are. You know, so that's how like meaning ties into this. But then also, you know, you just talked about, Josh, how like, you know, if your business had failed or whatever, you were still going to just like own it and be like, yeah, I tried, you know, it's cool. If you're being honest and you're living up to your values and you know, being a good person and telling the truth and so on, that puts you now in a position where you're more likely to stand up straight with your shoulders back and be like confident and happy with what you've done. Even if the gym had failed 10 years ago when you started it, you would have still like stood up straight and been like, hey, I mean, I was the man in the arena. I tried. Like I'm even if like this one failed, I'm going to try again and try again and try again until I succeed. And so these all start to tie in with each other. All these rules reinforce one another.
Yeah. And I always say, like, I'd rather be the one going at it, like, you get your head cut off, right? Versus just sitting in the stands, drinking your Pepsi, you know, that, you know, they did. And it was a few podcasts ago, I think I brought up where this nurse interviewed the terminally ill patients about what they regretted most in their life.
Oh, yeah.
It had nothing to do with what they did do, it was what they didn't do.
Yep.
And, you know, I think we could get rid of a lot of depression and anxiety in life if we just stopped, you know, caring what people thought, pursued what was meaningful, and just go for it. I'm not saying, you know, mortgage your house for it and, you know, lose everything, but I mean, being smart and calculated, but just do it, you know, definitely.
The next rule, I don't actually have any notes on because I thought it was kind of self-explanatory, but the rule is, and I like this one a lot, assume that the person you're talking to might know something that you don't. And I see Ricky already nodding, because I assume as a scientist, this is like one of your highest values as well. I mean, I'm not a scientist by profession, but I kind of am, like in my own life. I adhere to scientific principles generally in the way that I live. And I'm always trying to learn. You know, I identify as the learner, and I'm always trying to figure out if where I'm wrong. I think a lot of people go into like conversations and stuff, just trying to argue their point and almost not even listening to the other people around them. I think it's really valuable to assume that you might not know everything, even when there's something that you're confident on, and actually just listen to other people. You might like open your mind and you might learn something. That's how you grow and progress, and you don't stagnate in your own beliefs.
I'm glad you came to me on this one, because this was the one that I liked the most, actually.
I knew it. You and I think alike, and I like this one a lot. And I'm like, Ricky's going to love this one.
Yeah, I kind of gravitated towards this one because one of my, you know, being a philosophy major as well is, you know, assuming that you know nothing.
Yeah.
So assume that you're the dumbest person in the room and just listen to everybody else. And truly listen, because a lot of people, whenever someone talks, they listen to like maybe the first 3 words. There's some sort of buzzword that hits their ear.
Yep.
And then they're instantly thinking about their own thoughts, and they're instantly like, how am I going to respond? And they think about what they're going to say next and pretty much miss the entire point of what the person said.
Mm-hmm.
So I always take it as, I'm just going to listen to fully what the person says. I'll take it to heart, whatever they say, and then I'll put my input.
Ruminate on your own time, and like,
yeah, or I could give my input. Yeah, after I hear their full, explanation of why they think X, I will put my input on X, and then I'll be like, but I don't dismiss what they say.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying, oh, you're completely wrong and I'm completely right.
Yep.
Because I think everyone can learn something from anybody. We all have different experiences. We all go through this world in different forms and different ways, and we all interact with different people every day.
We all have our unique perspective on life. And
yeah.
Yep.
And it's like, it doesn't matter how smart you are. You could learn from, that 90-year-old woman that was a housewife her entire life.
Mm-hmm.
You may be the smartest person. You may never had a child in your life. Then you have a child. Wouldn't you have benefited of talking to that person that took care of children their entire life?
Yep.
Versus dismissing them for being, oh, well, you obviously have zero intelligence or zero input from me.
Right.
There's
way too much of that attitude these days. And by the way, this, like, a little subtopic that this made me think of is the problem with echo chambers that we live in these days. I try to seek out differing opinions from my own. Whereas a lot of people, unfortunately, and social media kind of promotes this with their algorithms and stuff, but people get trapped into just listening to the people that they agree with and not even considering the opposing viewpoint, whether it's in politics or whatever area of life. But like, actually seeking out opposing views and really taking the time to listen to, digest, and consider them is incredibly valuable. I always want to be the sort of person that can have his mind changed with new information, and not just be fixed in my own way of thinking and just assume that I'm always right.
Yeah, what I take away from this one, and I've learned this as you mature and get older, but to listen more than you talk.
You're very good at that too.
Well, that's a work in progress. But yeah, I definitely try to, like what Ricky said, genuinely listen. Dale Carnegie talks a lot about like the one-up conversation, or how people are formulating their next sentence before the other one's done. They don't remember within a few minutes of the conversation ending really what was talked about, only what they said. Andy, like when we talk, I'll bring up stuff from a month prior.
Yeah.
Like you said,
everything.
Yeah, because I am genuinely listening. Like you might say we need a piece of equipment, or you recommend this. It's all just being banked, because I'm listening.
Yeah.
And I think that when we look at working with our clients, listening is so important, because it's easy to overlook their struggles and what leads to their struggles if we think it's only this one way, right? So like someone isn't eating healthy. It's generally probably, if they're there with us as coaches, probably not because they just don't want to. There's a struggle there. We need to listen and ask questions and listen more and not judge them. If they say they don't know how to cook anything, we can't be like, well, that makes no sense. You just Google it and cook. Like, well, they probably genuinely don't. And like, maybe we give them advice or tips. Like, we're listening to them.
It all stems from, that's why we have so much conversation in our gym all the time. And there's constantly tips going back and forth between trainers and clients and everybody in our gym.
Yeah,
that's a great one. The next rule, I also really like a lot, and I didn't take any notes on it, but it's be precise in your speech. This is something that I really, really appreciate. And again, maybe it's from my attraction to science and stuff, but vagueness is definitely kills a lot of conversations. You know, it's really important to be precise in your speech, as in like really be able to articulate what it is that you think and mean when you're communicating with someone, so that they have a real understanding of your point of view.
Yep.
And it's tough. It takes practice. It takes actually having conversations, and even with yourself, like getting a little clearer in your own mind on what it is that you think, and exactly what it is you mean by whatever it is you're trying to communicate. I'm always attracted to speakers who are very, very precise with their language, as opposed to some speakers ramble on. They use a lot of, a lot of their sentences just become word salad. They have a bunch of big words. There's a lot of non sequiturs, and like this sentence didn't follow from the previous one. I really appreciate when people can be organized and logical in their communication. So,
I took away with this, especially in business, but in life in general, is just be very clear on your expectations.
Yeah.
And Ricky, I'm sure you probably, like with the military, you know, it's black and white generally, and this is what we expect, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. You know, I mentioned before living in the gray, you know, and there's politically correct conversations and this and that, and at the end, it really didn't tell you anything.
Right.
You know, they in Atlas Shrugged, my best book of all time. They talk about that a lot, and all the talks these, you know, people do on the political side, it's just all gray matter. It's just,
and they do
no one
that.
even knows what they talked about at the end, but they threw out buzzwords and, you know, made everyone smile and clap, and they didn't get shit out.
Yeah, what disgusts me about that sort of language or that sort of communication, that style, is I think a lot of times it's done intentionally.
Me too.
You know, and that, like that in Atlas Shrugged, that was a big theme, is that they use language to obscure meaning.
Yeah.
And they use a certain style of communication that obfuscates what the whole conversation, the whole point that they're trying to make.
Yeah.
And so you're just living in this cloud of like, no one knows what anything means.
That's like, was it Huxley's book? What's that one?
New World.
Yeah, that's that. No, like, you know, in 1984 touched on it, right? But like, you're absolutely right. No one really knows what those news broadcasts are about, but they're just sort of spitting stuff out, and we're all absorbing and nodding, but we're not precise at all.
Yeah. If we're going to have any effective communication and dialogue that actually gets anywhere, then people actually have to be clear and precise in what they're trying to communicate.
If I'm in those conversations, which that's like the opposite of what I like for conversations, especially the way that I come off, but like, you know, I ask, like, what do you mean? Be more clear. Give me an example. I'm asking those questions all the time. If I get some lame default answer, that doesn't mean anything to me. And so like, well, what do you mean? When are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? Like, just give me the details, but like things that actually are tangible. And a lot of times, and it's interesting, but they don't have answers to that.
Right. Yeah. And that kind of exposes that there's a lack of clarity in their own thinking about the subject.
Absolutely.
Which is great for, you know, if you identify as someone who's always trying to learn and improve yourself, if someone can expose that maybe, you know, you're not being so clear in what you're saying, then maybe that tells you, oh, you know, I really need to think about this topic a little bit more and become clear on what I think about it and what my position is, before I start speaking about that anymore, you know?
Yeah, and I think about it in terms of also commitment. So if someone's committed to, or says they are committed to, or are pursuing something, but they're very gray in how they talk about it or what they're doing or this or that, a lot of times you can hash it out real quick on how committed they are. And it comes off and helps people.
Okay. Well, we got two left. This next one, I didn't even really know what it meant when I read the chapter heading. I had to skim through the chapter to try to figure out what he was talking about. But the next rule was, do not bother children when they're skateboarding. Did either of you guys want to jump into this one, have anything to say about it? Do you think you know what he meant by that?
The only thing I took from that was like, let kids take risks.
That was where I went with it too.
Yeah, I don't really have anything much more to say on that. Like we bubble wrap these kids these days. We don't want Johnny to get a scratch or his feelings hurt or beat up on the playground. And reality is like life is hard. And so, I don't think that you should be, this military drill sergeant with a 5-year-old, but I think there's a lot to be said for, probably the way that we grew up, right? Like jumping bicycles, flipping dirt bikes, getting in fights.
All these things kids are not allowed to do these days because, like you said, they're wrapped in bubble wrap.
Yeah, and then there's soft parents come into the meeting to defend the kid. And like, I really think this chapter was good. It's very simple, but like, let your kids get hurt. Let them figure it out. Like Asher says all this stuff constantly. And I'm like, man, that's probably not a good idea, but like, give it a shot.
Hey, you know what? We learn from falling down and from getting scrapes and bruises, right? And if a kid isn't allowed to experience a little bit of danger or, that sort of like jumping dirt bikes, like you said, whatever it is that they do, they're not going to toughen up. What I took away from this chapter was that human beings are or should be anti-fragile.
Yeah.
We need to experience stress in order to grow and become strong adults.
See, what I thought it was it's relating to, children and, let your children be children and, do stupid things. Right. But on the other side, I thought it was also talking about like yourself in some ways, like, don't just play it safe. Like that's kind of what I took from it. It was like these people, the skateboarder is doing skateboarding not because it's something safe. It's because they wanted to experiment with something that was challenging to make them actually safer in the future.
Sure.
And
out of your comfort zone is another way we could talk about this.
Right. And I mean, I actually stayed away from skateboarding because I thought it was pretty dangerous. But, I knew my cousin did. He did do it. And for whatever reason, but that's just an example. I would say that I think people need to take more risks. Whenever I read that chapter, I didn't think it was just pertaining to children. It's basically before you judge someone else for doing something reckless, like maybe you should check yourself and maybe you should actually be trying to take risks.
I think that's a great point, Ricky. Like when you look at kids and as they get older, the level of risk drops. And, some of that's learned, but a lot of that's societal versus there's some, 40, 50-year-olds I know, like, Pete Lombardi, Dan Williams, that are just mountain biking and elk hunting, and like they're just fully living out more, definitely more so than the average kid now in their 40s and 50s. Their risk factor hasn't dropped as they age, and I think we start sort of dying inside when you see the kids out playing in the field and doing this and that, and you're just sitting around watching. And we've been sort of sterilized to risk and told just to play it safe, and kids don't do that. And that's why I think kids learn at the rate they learn, and enjoy themselves and are significantly happier than the average adult. So yeah, it's a good chapter for sure.
Yeah, it is. One of Jordan's big themes is that life is this interplay between, he likes to call it order and chaos. And he says, like, I think he makes this point somewhere that most of like the breakthroughs you have, or most of the achievements that you, like, whenever you do something great in life, it's usually because you're playing on that boundary of order and chaos. You're not just trying to sit back in the well-ordered state where nothing bad ever happens, but also nothing good ever happens. It's just kind of like you're just sitting where society tells you to sit, maybe. versus if you play on that boundary. You don't want to go too far into chaos and hurt yourself or take too much risk and end up, messing yourself up in the end in whatever way. But you do want to kind of play on that boundary, because that's where the action happens, and that's where new things emerge.
Well, I think people define that, and there was a book, Andy, I think you read this. There's a Russian author, is Flow. It's in my office. One of my favorite books, but that's what he talks about. He says it differently. It's not between order and chaos, but basically when we're in that flow state is when we're struggling but learning. And that's when we lose track of like time, because we're in flow.
Oh, you're talking Mihai Csikszentmihalyi.
Yes, it's red. Yeah. Yep. Did you read that?
Yeah, it's just called Flow.
Yeah, flow. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's what that reminds me of when Jordan talks about living in the middle of chaos. We don't want too much chaos, but we definitely don't want too much order.
Right.
But yeah, that's I define that as flow.
And that brings us to the last one. Rule 12, if you see a cat on the street, pet it. I don't know what you guys took from this one. I mean, it sounds like, for one thing, be kind. But I think the main point he was trying to make is don't forget to live in the present moment.
Yeah.
He's telling you sometimes your head is swimming with just all the craziness of life. And you know what? A cat walks across your desk, pet it, live in the present moment, be there, and don't forget that life takes place right now, and there's a lot of beauty to be found just right now.
And I forget, I did read a little bit about this one, and I forget exactly what it was, but it almost goes back to how we always tell people to get out in nature.
Yeah.
And just experience nature and just get out there and relax. People don't understand how relaxing it is just to be out there and to visualize, I don't know how to explain it, I guess.
Well, nature puts you in the present moment. It kind of forces you there. For one thing, we were out rock climbing this past weekend, Josh, all of us, and we're unplugged the whole time. We don't get any cell phone service. We're just like interacting with our immediate surroundings. And I think that's one thing that nature does, Ricky, to your point, is it just forces you to be present.
Yeah. But also it's like sometimes you can worry about such little things that don't really matter as much as you think they do. And they can weigh down on you. I'm not saying that they're, that you should neglect them, but I think being in nature can sometimes, or just petting that cat can bring you back to this point where you're like, well, there still are good things in this world. There's a lot more than just me. And to just see the simplicity, but the complexity in those things can sometimes make you see how small you really are, I guess.
Yeah, when you're present, you can definitely be drawn into a state of kind of awe.
And I think when you look at that cat and interact with that cat, you're genuinely have an opportunity to connect with that cat. It's purring and, it looks at you and it has a heartbeat, like it's living. I think there's a humanity piece there, definitely. Or you see a cool bird outside, or there's a bird here every morning. I hear it through the window that has this awesome song it sings. I have no idea what bird it is, but I connect with that. And I'm like, I think he's waking us up. He's probably not doing that, but like, I think there's a piece there, like you said, being present. And I don't know. Yeah, I would just leave it at that. I think being present, not being so busy that you have to just blast by that cat. That may feel a lot better after you pet it. Maybe it'll run away, but just stopping to smell the roses. Definitely.
That's it, guys. We hit them all. I think that was pretty good. I was wondering how this one was going to go, but that was a great conversation.
Yeah, I think people should definitely read that book. You listen to some of Jordan's stuff. I'm going to be starting his new book. What is that called? Beyond Order?
Is it called like?
I thought it was 12.
I think it's called 12 More Rules for Life or something.
Yeah. And then I think it says Beyond Order. I think that's like the subtitle. But I'm going to start that see how that goes. I got a few friends reading that now. They like it. So
I should read that one too.
in the shop. All right, cool. We're sign off. This episode was great. Hopefully people took value from it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's always cool to see the support there. You know, if you have questions, you know, topic you want us to dive into, or maybe you want to be a guest, we're actually going to be starting to invite, you know, some select people on here to join us, which will be cool. We're really excited about that. And if you want to become a client of Co-Movement, whether it's online or in person, reach out to us at info@comovement.com and just say hi and see where the conversation goes. Tell us about your goals. You know, maybe that'll be a good fit for you. And if not, we will sign off and see everyone next week.
Awesome. Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.
See ya.